Hi, and welcome to this lesson on sending email and text. I'm Norman McIntyre, and I'll be your instructor. The topics we're going to cover, we're going to begin by looking at the Message UI framework. And this is a framework that you can add to your project that gives you the ability to send email. So we're going to look at how you go about sending email using this framework. We'll also look at sending text messages. This Message UI framework allows you to send text messages as well. We'll give a demonstration showing how to send email and text, and we'll also give you an exercise so you can try sending email as well. So how do we start out? We use the Message UI framework. This Message UI, which stands for Message User Interface framework, it provides two view controllers. These are predefined view controllers written for you to use as needed, and one of them is the MF Mail Compose view controller. You can probably guess what this does. It provides for you a view controller that allows you to compose email. It's system provided. You simply call it and it will display an email view controller for composing emails. There's also the MF Message Compose view controller. And this Message Compose view controller, this is system provided to do messages. So sending text messages. Now suppose you want to use the email. You'll use the MF Mail Compose view controller, but you will also use, associated with it, the MF Mail Compose view controller delegate. Think of it this way. If you're going to use the MF Mail Compose view controller, how can it call you back? How can it notify you when mail has been sent, or mail has been canceled, or mail has been saved, or mail has an error? Well, the answer is it will do so by using this delegate, this MF Mail Compose view controller delegate. Now SMS, or text messaging, is very similar. It has an MF Message Compose view controller, and if you call this, it will display a built-in view controller that allows you to enter text messages. And then how does it notify you when the text message is sent, or whether it was canceled, or whether there was an error? And the answer is it uses this MF Message Compose view controller delegate. So let's look at the MF Mail Compose view controller. The first method you will call for this one, and notice it has a plus in front of it, so you know this is a class method. It's called CanSendMail. So the first step is always determine if you can send mail. So by calling the MF Mail Compose view controller, we can ask, can you send mail? Because not all iOS devices are configured to send mail. So you first have to check. Now, assuming you can indeed send mail, then your next step is to create a MF Mail Compose view controller. And after you create that, what you want to do is set the delegate to that, the Mail Compose delegate. And that way it can call you back when it's done. The set subject is a method you can use, as it says there, to set the subject of the email. So you pass in a string to set the subject. Notice you can also set the recipients. You can set who you're sending it to, who you want to send a carbon copy, and who you want to send a blind carbon copy. Notice for all three of those, you have an array. So you can send it to just one person, or you could have a whole group of people. It's just how many email addresses you put into the array. Notice you can also set the body of the email. And what's interesting about setting the body of the email, you can either just set straight text, or you can set is HTML and set that to yes, meaning you're going to set HTML. In other words, your email will have HTML formatting codes inside of it. Guess what? You can also add attachments. So by calling add attachment data, this allows you to add attachments of various types connected to the email you're sending from your application. So let's say you've created the view controller, this MF Mail Compose view controller. You've displayed it, and the user then either enters something and sends it, or maybe they cancel out of it. How do you know what they did? And the answer is this MF Mail Compose view controller delegate. The MF Mail Compose view controller delegate did finish with result and error. Kind of a mouthful, but this method will be called back. This is the delegate. It calls you back and will let you know what were the results. And it will also tell you whether there was an error. Now, your code should dismiss the view controller when this method's called. In fact, if your code does not dismiss the view controller, you'll see the Mail Compose view controller will sit there forevermore. So it's up to you to tell it you're done with it and make it dismiss itself. So that's always important. I find that's a step people often overlook, and they wonder, why does the MF Mail Composer view controller not go away? So just make sure you dismiss it. So what are the values of the result that comes back? We can have a MF Mail Compose result canceled. If that one comes back, it means the user saw the view controller, but they pressed the cancel key. They decided they didn't really want to send email. There's also the MF Mail Compose result saved, which says the user saved the email, but they didn't send it right now. They started to type it, and then they said, well, I want to wait a little bit, and they pressed save. There's also the MF Mail Compose result sent. This one says, hey, the user not only composed the email, but they sent it. And of course, there's always the chance that something happened. The MF Mail Compose result could have failed. So those were the ones for the message for sending the email. How about if you want to do the message compose view controller? In this case, we'll check, can you send text? In fact, notice these three methods. Can you send text? Can you send a subject? And can you send attachments? All of these relate to sending text messages. Also, just like we saw email had a delegate, notice this messaging has a separate delegate. So the message compose delegate, this is where you'd set the delegate so it'll call you back, giving you the status of the text. Also notice we have a property here that gives you the recipients for the text. So just like we saw when you're sending mail, you could send it to more than one person. The same thing with text. The recipients is an array of recipients. So you could send it to one or more people. Also notice the body is an NS string, so you can type in the body that will be sent as the text. If your text message supports it, you can also put in a subject. Well, you only do that if you get a yes back from the can send subject. Let's look at the MF Mail Compose view controller delegate. Let's look at the MF Message Compose view controller delegate. Just like we saw the Mail Compose view controller had to call us back, the same thing with the Message Compose view controller delegate. So he's going to call us back with this method, Message Compose view controller. And when we call that back, notice he will pass in a result, did finish with result. Just like we saw the email, the same thing with the text, your code should dismiss the view controller when this method is called. All right, so you'll set the delegate, you'll get the message compose view controller, did finish with result. One of your steps is to dismiss that view controller. The results that come back, you'll have an MF message compose result canceled. So that would be if the user just decided to cancel the message. Or you could have an MF message compose result sent. That tells you the text message was sent. Or you could have an MF message compose result failed. So essentially the error condition. So this brings us up to our demo. We're going to create an iOS single view app demonstrating how to send email and text using this message UI framework. Your exercise, which you'll download from the exercise area on the course page under the materials tab, and you'll write an exercise that sends email and text. Once you complete it, compare your answer to the one in the exercise guide. In this demo, we're going to create an iOS app that demonstrates how to send email and also a text message. So let me come over here to the code. We'll create a brand new project to demonstrate this. So File, New Project. We'll do single view like we've been doing throughout the course, and this is going to be the Mod 12 demo. I'll go ahead and touch Next and then Create. Keep this with our projects. What I want to do for this demo is begin with the storyboard and simply have two buttons on the storyboard. One will be for sending text, the other will be for sending an email. Now it turns out on the simulator you cannot send text, and sometimes on the simulator you cannot even send email. But we'll at least see what messages pop up related to this, and we'll put the code there in any case. So I'm going to say send email, and then I'll also have another button that says send text. Okay, so send text. So as far as the way the demo goes, we'll just touch the button and then go to the appropriate item and handle that. So what I'll do is bring up my assistant editor and connect up the send email, control click drag release, and I'll say do send email. And then for the text, very similar, control click drag release, I'll say do send text. Now both for email and for text we will need to import a framework. So I'll say import, and the module that I'm going to import is going to be this message UI. So the message UI framework has the ability to send both email and text messages. I'm really done with the storyboard at this point, so I'll put that aside. I'm going to just focus on my viewcontroller.m code, and I want to begin by looking at sending email. You always first check if you can send email. So you do this by going to your MF Mail Compose View Controller. So there's something called the Mail Compose View Controller. So MF Mail Compose View Controller. And you send it the class method can send email. Okay, so can send mail. If this returns no, so if this is equal to no, it means you cannot send email on this particular platform, on this particular device. So if that's the case, I'll say UI alert view. I'll allocate the alert view. I'll initialize with a title. In fact, this is a perfect example of when it's a good time to use an alert view. I may say cannot send email. I don't really need to have any message there. The delegate I could set to nil. The cancel button I could set to nil. And the only other button I need is OK. So I'll say OK, then I'll say show itself. And so if this occurs, there's nothing more to do, so I'll just say return. All right, so return if that is the case. In fact, what you might want to do is run it right now just to see on your particular simulator, can you send email? And of course, what should happen if you touch this button, then by touching the button, boom, notice it just comes right back. We did not see the alert. So that tells us, yes, it is possible to send email. Now, it turns out if you're going to use text, you need to do the exact same thing. So for text, I'm going to come in here and say if, but in this case, a text is the MF Message Compose View Controller. So Message Compose View Controller, and in this case, we want to see, can you send text? And if this is equal to no, then of course we would do this same alert. In fact, you could grab this code that we just put, copy it, and put it here for these statements, and just say, cannot send text. Now on most simulators, you cannot send text. So if I stop this and run this portion of the code, although we saw the email came back okay, if I touch on the send text, look at this, cannot send text. So this one we can't actually send on the simulator, but that's okay. We'll still show you how you can send using the email. So let's say we get here to the email, then the next thing we have to do, and make a note that although I'm going to show doing it with email, the steps are very similar with the text. It's just whether you're using the mail compose view controller or you using the message compose view controller. So if we get to this point, we know we can indeed send email. So I'm going to create an instance of the MF mail compose view controller. I'll just call it VC equals MF mail compose view controller allocate and initialize. So we've allocated and initialized this mail compose view controller. I'm then going to go to the view controller and I'm going to set the delegate of this. Actually, I want to have the mail compose delegate, and I'm going to set it to self. That way it can call me back and I know what the results of sending the mail were. While I'm at it, let me go ahead and set the subject of the email. I'll say demo email, and this way it'll be set into my subject. I could also set some body. Maybe I'll say set the body of the email, or let's see, we could set the recipients. Let's do set the recipients. Let's see, the view controller to the recipients. So let's do set the title. Let's set the to recipients right here. Notice that's an array, and I could say maybe this is going to be sent to, say, John Doe. I'll just say john.doe@gmail.com. And it's an array. I could put as many as I want, but I'll just put one here in this case. And we could fill out other things, but once we're all done with that, we then say show the view controller. So I'll say, okay, go to ourself, and we want to present the view controller. When you say present the view controller, we'll give it the view controller we created, saying animated is yes, and we won't use a completion routine. So at that point, it appears on our screen. Notice right here when we set the delegate, what we need to do is come here and say that we need to implement the MF mail compose view controller delegate. It only has a single method, and we'll put that method right here. We'll put that method right here. We'll say mail compose view controller did finish with result. Now in our case, we really don't have anything to do other than see the status of what happened. So what I will do is just do a switch statement based on the result that comes in. I have these possible results, which I can see by pressing the escape key. I could see we have a canceled, which would mean that, of course, we had a canceled. So maybe what I'll do here is say nslog and just put whatever we got there saying we were canceled. So here I'll say canceled. Since we really don't have anything to do other than check that we did a canceled. Let's have another case. Maybe for this one we'll say the result failed. So for some reason we failed, we do an nslog and say we failed, and we'll break out of this. We might have another case where we say the result was saved. In other words, the email was simply saved. So we'll do nslog and say saved, and we'll break out of that. And the last one we have, we can say the last case is that the email was sent. And nslog just for demo purposes, we'll say NSLog, it was sent. Break out of that. It doesn't matter what you do, at the end, you want to be sure to go to the controller and tell it to dismiss the view controller animated and have your completion as nil. So very important to remember to do that. So what we've got should have everything in place. Let's go ahead and give it a run, and we should see how you can send email. So let's say I said send email. I'll come up here, notice it's got my subject, says demo email. If I hit cancel out of here, notice when I hit cancel, what happens is down here it says, whoop, I hit cancel. This concludes the demo showing how to send email and text. Thank you for joining us.